2016 was a slow year for Takashi Miike, director Takashi Miike. Yeah, this guy is prolific, to say the least. 120 films and counting at this point. He ain't no slouch. It's like this guy's a shark. Unless he's making movies, I think he's going to die. But yeah, slow year was 2016 because he only released 2 films that year. In some years, I've counted 6. This guy's released 6 films that he's directed in a year. So yeah, like I say, 120 and counting. But in 2016, one of the films that he released was this little nugget called Terra Formars that is bonkers, that is bat poop crazy, quite frankly. I was watching this thing and I'm like, this has got to be based on a manga, because this is just like every manga I've ever seen all rolled into one. And funnily enough, yeah, it is. It's based on a manga of the same name, Terra Formars, about a crew who go to Mars. This is Mars that has been kind of terraformed, or the terraforming has begun. But as part of that terraforming process, they used cockroaches, which have now evolved and become these humanoid beings that they send this crew there to wipe out. But actually, there's twists and turns, and are they really there to wipe them out, or is there other things going on? And a lot of that is left unexplained, to be honest, or at least there's an attempt to explain it, and it's not really done all that well. So yeah, when things start happening and the crew members start learning what's going on, it's kind of like, I could do with a few more blanks filling in there, to be honest. But I feel like, yeah, Miike is just working so fast and thinking so fast and just doing everything so fast. Probably thinking about his next 26 projects. Some of the gaps don't quite get filled in. Like, for example, one character who dies and then comes back at one point, and there's no explanation really as to how she came back, as to what point she injected herself with something to come back. And yeah, she's just been kind of sitting there on the bed for, dead for most of the film, and then boom, she comes back, and it's just no explanation. So yeah, it's a bit jittery in that regard. What it does have going for it is, as I say, it's bat poo crazy. So you're going to see things in this film that are just like, okay. It's, have you seen a lot of manga stuff? In Japanese kind of anime and that, they love turning humans into things. They love giving them superpowers or turning them into creatures like devil monsters, things like that. Here we get insects, so they're going up against these cockroach men, and they get turned into different insects. And each time someone turns into their respective insect, we get these like sports board kind of points, like all the various things you need to know about that particular insect, so we can learn what this person's power is going to be now that they've become an insect. The creature designs, the effects work on them, it ranges from kind of silly looking, like Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy type deal, to genuinely kind of David Cronenbergian kind of like body horror type stuff. One particular character who's a serial killer in the group, because these are all like your lowest of the low that have been sent on this mission, obviously. And one of them, yeah, he's a serial killer, and the thing that he turns into that kind of spits out this flame, just, yeah, like I say, that's something out of Cronenberg. The main bugs, the cockroaches, if you will, the villains of the piece, are very well designed. I really liked them. There's something kind of goofy looking about them, and yet horrific at the same time. These things are genuinely scary because there's just something very unearthly about them. Obviously, they're giant cockroaches, but I find these things creepier, I would say, than the giant cockroaches we've got in Guillermo del Toro's Mimic. If they'd have looked like this in Mimic, man, the style of these in Mimic probably wouldn't suit that film, actually. Like I say, there is something kind of goofy about them, but it's their sheer power and force of will that kind of makes them slightly terrifying as well. I was quite surprised by how accurate they were to the manga too. I watched the behind the scenes kind of video on this, because this is the Arrow release that I watched, and there's a making of documentary on there, and I watched it and I was very surprised at how faithful Miike was to the original manga. It's a manga I've never read. I don't really read Japanese comic books or anything, but they showed some of it in that making of documentary, and literally as they appear in the comic books is literally exactly how they look in the film. That could have gone that could have gone south, could have gone wrong, but no, they do a really good job here of bringing them to screen, and it's mostly bodysuit as well. You can tell they've touched them up a bit here and there with CGI, and there's certain scenes like when they're all invading a ship and stuff where they need to go the CGI route just to get the sheer numbers and things. But for the most part, it's like a bodysuit, but it's a very well designed bodysuit. Props to the special makeup and effects department on this film, because it looks incredible in that regard. Like I say, I wouldn't give this film any more than a 3-star rating, just because it is just so all over the place. It's so nuts and bonkers. It's throwing a lot of ideas at the screen, just from a visual standpoint in terms of character designs and things like that, and like half of them land really well and the other half kind of not so much. There's also this really annoying villain in it who's like this, I don't know that you'd call him a cross-dresser, but he seems to be wearing women's clothing, so I guess that is a cross-dresser. He's the villain. He's the one who sends them on the mission, and he's just really obsessed with fashion, and he has this long-running kind of gag throughout the film where just after he's given him some bad news, he'll comment on the clothes he's wearing and how awesome he looks, and how no one else would understand it because they don't understand fashion. But it's just this really weird kind of character trait to throw in that's got nothing to do with nothing, and it's I guess just there to give this guy amped up character. Like none of these people really are genuine characters. They're more caricatures. They're staples. They give each one a little bit of background as to why they're there, why they went on the mission, why they chose to go for the money. But none of it is really heartfelt. None of it makes me go, oh, I really feel for these guys. No, it just clues you into who these are. It gives you enough for what you need to know about why they're there. And that's pretty much it. The rest of it is really about seeing them all do crazy-ass stuff, putting weird-ass visuals on screen, and turning people into even weirder monsters. It never got a sequel, but it's set up for one, essentially. But who knows? Maybe at some point. I don't know how well this did back in its homeland, but yeah, here it got an Arrow release, which isn't generally, it's not generally a sign that a film has done it exponentially well, but it's usually some kind of cult classic. I wouldn't call this a classic. I'd definitely say it's a cult movie, but worth checking out if you like your crazy ass Japanese cinema, and particularly if you're a fan of Miike. All respect to the guy. His output, as I say once again, so prolific. Mad respect for anyone who can put out 120 films in their lifetime, let alone 6 films in 1 year. But yeah, it's good, but that's about it. What about you, though? Have you seen Terra Formars, and where do you think it sits in the pantheon of Miike films? I feel like I'd need a lifetime to watch all of Miike's films, but by the time you've finished watching several, he's made another one. Let me know your thoughts on the film down in the comments section if you've seen it. Thank you for watching this review, and until next time, cracking.